Well, our guest on Our Stories today is Betty Q. Smith. And she has an adventure to tell us about that took place in her life a fair number of years ago. But I'm going to turn it over to Betty and have her tell us about her trip to Europe.
Thank you very much, Dick. Okay, in 1958, I had the opportunity to go to Europe with my neighbor from Jacksonville, who conducted tours every other year with the Chicago Motor Club and the AAA organization. I had taught for 2 years and I'd saved all my money so that I could go, and it was in 1958, and we went over on the Queen Mary, and I traveled in 12 different countries. I was gone for 2 months, and it just seemed impossible that I could do that, but it was the most wonderful experience I've ever had.
Now, how much traveling outside of, Illinois had you done previous to this?
Very little. I went to college up in Macomb. I, of course, came and taught in Decatur, and as a child, I think we went to out east with my parents, my family, and we had gone when I was in high school down to Kentucky and Tennessee. But this is the first time that I got in a car with my neighbor and rode all the way to New York City, and then went abroad across the big ocean for 6 weeks, or we were gone 2 whole months.
Well, that's a pretty significant undertaking. Took a lot of courage to do that and embark on that kind of an adventure.
It certainly did.
But I guess you had the security of knowing the people that you were
Yes,
going with.
they were neighbors, my parents' neighbors, and he was a music teacher in the Lutheran schools in Jacksonville. And as I said, he was well organized, took trips every other year, groups from Jacksonville basically. So I felt very comfortable in traveling with them.
When you and I talked before, you indicated that this trip really changed you and changed your life. What about that?
Well, for one thing, it certainly increased my knowledge of these 12 countries over in Europe. It was amazing how much information we were given and how many different places we went and all the museums and churches. And it was just such a well-organized, unusual trip. And we had several highlights and I must say, now when I watch Jeopardy, I can give some of the answers.
But the thing I understood that you were saying before when we talked was that you felt like it really made you a much more confident person.
Oh yes. For me at that time, to embark on such an adventure was very unusual for me to do that. I was very much a homebody. And I feel like it did give me confidence. I had only taught for 2 years, but my life forever after that, I felt more secure, certainly in traveling, and did quite a bit.
Yeah. So how soon after this was your next trip?
Oh my, it was a long, long, long time.
Was it? Yeah.
I would say the one thing that I did for many years is with Verlin Rosenberger. She and I went to the National Audubon Camps in the summertime. We went to the National Wildlife Summit Conference, and we took a wagon train trip across Kansas, and I might say those were my main trips before I got married in my life.
But you also mentioned to me that you had a group of girlfriends that you associated with, and that you guys sort of had some goals you set for yourself.
Oh yes. When I graduated from college, my friends and I, we decided what we wanted to do before we were 30. And I had 4 things. One was to go to Europe. Another was to get my master's degree and also to buy a convertible. And the fourth one was to get married. And of course, I achieved the three before 30, but I did not get married until I was in my 40s. And I had 3 convertibles.
I had something here I wanted to show you. I'm having trouble getting it focused in here. Was that your car?
Oh, it is. Much better looking than when I ended up with it. Yes, I had the gold stripe down the side and had white sidewalls and black and white leather seats. And I bought it. When I got back from my trip, I had enough money in the next year that I bought a used 1957 Ford convertible, black convertible.
Yeah, that was quite an automobile.
Oh, it certainly was.
Yeah, good. So this trip really sort of set you off then into feeling like you could take on and do other things that maybe you wouldn't have considered prior to going on this trip.
Well, that's probably true. I was a kindergarten teacher, and I taught kindergarten my entire career. And I did become a member of the Delta Kappa Gamma Beta Pi chapter, and I was president of the organization. And I might even say when I was in high school, I was in Rainbow Girls, and I was the worthy advisor of Rainbow Girls, which was an accomplishment for me at that time.
Yeah, okay, good. Well, thanks for sharing your time with us.
Well, you're very welcome. I'm happy to do it.